Greetings IB artists, this is Miss A, and today we'll be talking about themes in IB art. The summer isn't quite over, so if you see red blotches appearing, it means that I'm getting alive by mozzies for you. First of all, I would like to link the themes in IB art to Criterion A in the IB art exhibition. I've done a couple of videos that kind of mention the themes in art, but I'm going to focus today. And also, if you would like to check out my video on the criteria in the IB art exhibition component, then I'll link that as well. Okay, so if we look at Criterion A in the IB art exhibition component, one of the kind of things that are emphasized is coherence. They're looking for a body of work that is coherent. So I'm actually going to read to you what the criterion is looking for. To what extent does the submitted work communicate a coherent collection of works which fulfill stated artistic intentions and communicate clear thematic and stylistic relationships across individual pieces? I want to kind of take apart the last part of that sentence. Now, thematic is pretty obvious. This is what we're talking about today, themes in IB art. There are themes that are appropriate and there are themes that are less appropriate or less useful, let's say. But there's a word which, the word stylistic, I think can be, in my opinion, a little bit misleading, because I think that a lot of people think that that means having a style. Now, if you have a style, it means that you have worked through a lot of stuff to get to a specific or signature style that you have. And to be honest, that is really best left to perhaps artists who are experienced. When I look at work and mark work as an examiner, when I see style, it usually means that the person, the candidate, has not been very experimental, and that they have not really kind of taken risks and pushed themselves beyond their comfort zone. So to me, if you're interpreting stylistic to mean in appearance, it can mean that you then produce repetitive work. Repetitive work means that you're not growing, which means that you're not going to score very highly, even if you think that you've achieved a kind of a perfected style. That really shouldn't be happening this early on in your career as an artist. Okay? I think what they actually mean by stylistic is to have, and this is my interpretation, look at stylistic in the sense of approach, methodology, and practice, which links back to your process portfolio and the criteria there. So if you kind of want to really kind of understand what it is that you are being asked to do in terms of how to develop your portfolio, then you look at the criteria for the process portfolio. Remember, the process portfolio and the comparative study both lead to the exhibition. So the exhibition really encompasses all the criteria that are being asked of you. Okay, so I hope that I've made that clear. Stylistic does not mean a certain style. Examiners are not looking for a style, but they're looking for some kind of approach or methodology that is consistently present in your process of development and refinement of your work. So the first question really is, are themes necessary? I've said this before, and the IB does not specify that you need a theme for your work. So the answer is no. However, I think that themes can be very, very helpful in terms of pinpointing an area of interest that can kind of help you with developing an idea, a concept, a technique, all of these kind of things that you're going through it gives it a focus, because it can be quite confusing if you and overwhelming if you kind of just thrown into it and think I've got to do all these things, and you're kind of all over the place. I think that can be quite overwhelming. So it's good to keep coming back to a theme or some kind of focal point for you to kind of have direction and to help you with what the next step is. Okay, and of course, the more you do, I've said this many times, that the more you're engaged with the actual doing of art, the more you will get your ideas from that. It will generate lots and lots of ideas. So when you're working on a piece, you might think, well, I really would like to develop this technique further. Or if you're working on a piece, you may think, well, this concept is very interesting, but I would like to kind of look at it from a different perspective, etc., etc. But again, all these kind of tangents that you're taking and should be taking have a focal point which brings you back to, what am I doing again? And so on. If you do decide to pick a theme for your IB 2-year project, please make sure that you discuss this with your teacher. Your teacher is your main guide through this course, obviously. I like to think of the support that I offer as a kind of support when you're kind of alone and you're kind of, tearing your hair out thinking, oh my God, I don't know what to do. It's good to kind of regroup, I guess, and I think that's what I'm trying to do with my videos. But please don't forget that your teacher is the one who will, you have to discuss things with, and they will be able to guide you because they know you, they know your specific situation, etc. But what are good themes or appropriate themes or interesting things? Why are some themes better than others? Well, I mean, you're kind of doing art as it should reflect basically who you are, and it is an expression of the self. So it would be strange if you picked a topic that you have no kind of personal relationship with or experience of, etc. It could be very interesting. Again, whatever I say in art, there's always exceptions. But I think it will probably be easier if you pick something that you already know a little bit about, that you are already curious about, that you have some kind of connection with. I mean, ideally, if you're passionate about something, I think that's even better, because then it will, that you need that drive to sustain you over the 2 years. So I recommend something that you feel fired up by, or feel very strongly about. That would be a good start. It's interesting to think about the fact that a lot of people who pick their themes in IB art and go on to study art usually find themselves continuing that theme, because it does become, especially after the 2 years, something very, very personal, something that is that they're fully engaged in, and they feel like they're just discovering it by the time they've finished the IB course. So it's a really interesting thing to think about and to choose eventually. Picking a theme, it's something that you should take your time thinking about, again, for all the reasons that I've already stated. But more than just kind of, in fact, please do avoid themes that you are kind of basing on what you like and what you don't like, because that will only get you so far. Once you're, when you're thinking about the themes that, are possibilities, it's best to have maybe, I would say about 3, to kind of narrow it down to 3, maybe do some spider diagrams around your theme and really explore the possibilities. I think the most important question that you need to ask yourself about your theme is it something that I can critically examine thoroughly? If the answer is yes, there's many, many possibilities, then that's a really good theme. It should also be something that is open enough to be examined from different angles, but not too open so that it becomes, you might as well not have a theme. It should be something that is a focal point, but is open enough to have lots of aspects that you can examine, practically, conceptually, and in all the ways where you are covering the criteria of the comparative study, the process portfolio, and the exhibition in the end. Another good indication of what a good theme, or a strong theme, if you like, is that the aspects that you can kind of examine range from the very, very practical, as in, can I pick a few objects that are related or somehow reflect the theme, and I'll talk a little bit later about why I say this, to the kind of almost the kind of abstract end of conceptually, can I explore this theme in a critical way, really looking at, can you explore it in a social context? Can you explore your theme in a cultural context, a political context, or an abstract context, right? So does your theme, is it broad enough? Is it deep enough? Is it wide enough to be examined in those ways, right? Because even though you're doing visual arts, and that is the emphasis, your drawing skills, your observation skills are really, really important. This is why I'm talking about the objects, but I'll get to that in a minute. Can you take it a lot further as well? Right, so remember when I said, is it your theme practical enough to make you think of objects? Well, I've said this in the other video that I'll link. It's a really good idea while you're still kind of formalizing the theme in your head that you really start working. My suggestion in the other video is, can you find objects that are somehow related to your theme? It doesn't have to be, a big kind of deal, but it would be really great if you could start somewhere quite concrete, like a still life, that can then lead you to explore other aspects of this theme. So, and I'll give you some examples later on. But basically what I'm saying is, whatever theme you choose, in the beginning of your course, it's great if you could start thinking about that theme while you're drawing a few things that are related to it, okay? And I'll explain when I give you the examples. So, for example, one of the most kind of I would say safest, but not necessarily safe in the sense of not interesting, it can be extremely interesting, and this is why this theme is so popular, is identity, right? So, while you're thinking about the identity, is it, are you going to be addressing your identity? Are you going to be addressing the identity of a group, as in a cultural group, or a racial group, or a gender group, etc.? And while you're kind of thinking about what aspects you want to explore or start exploring on your course, you can do things like, selfies, self-portraiture, that kind of thing. So you're starting with something very, very concrete, and then you're developing it as you go along, and you're, while you're kind of really thinking out the conceptual aspect of that theme. But remember, don't waste time by just kind of sitting around thinking. Draw while you're thinking, and from that work, I promise you, a lot of other stuff will emerge. So again, if you choose something like identity, the sky's the limit. You really kind of can explore that in so many ways, and again, you have so many contexts within which you can explore that theme. So again, socially, culturally, politically, etc. And it could be just visually. I mean, there's so many aspects to that. So identity is a very, very good theme to choose. It is very popular, but the way you approach it, the way you examine it, it will always be unique. So don't worry about that too much. Just think about what you can add to that theme, and how you can make it interesting. So if you want to take something quite abstract, like, if your theme can be texture, right? Again, try and start with something concrete, like, I don't know, texture of plants, or you can have a few fruit that are very textured. I'm saying the obvious, but that's how you should really kind of start with something very, very concrete and develop it conceptually later. So for example, for texture, you could have something like skin, right? So, you could have contrasts of different types of skin, aging skin, diseased skin, young skin, baby skin. And then once you kind of look at that, you can then look at other things like how that impacts people socially. Why is kind of youth elevated while age is seen as something unattractive or ugly? As you're thinking about skin, you're thinking about something very, very tactile, something very, very visual, and you're thinking about all kind of aspects of what comes with skin color, skin texture, skin health, etc., etc., right? So you kind of see where I'm going with this. You start with something very, very concrete, and then as you're working on that concrete observational drawing, etc., you are then thinking about different aspects of that theme that you can explore in a larger, more conceptual way, right? And this will cover all your criteria. Another example is, horses. Let's say that you love horses. You love the way they look. You love them. You ride them, maybe. You look after them. I don't know. Again, so start with something very, very concrete. Spend a lot of time with horses. Take photographs of horses. Draw horses. Get scale models of horses if you can't have a horse in front of you. Just be creative with the photography that you do. So that's the very kind of practical side of that theme, and then take that theme further. Explore the relationships they have, within their communities, how they display emotions. What is our relationship to horses? Historically, there is the horse meat trade. There are animal rights. There's so many aspects again of something as simple as taking a horse as your theme. So again, start with something practical and then take it all the way. If you have ideas, play the devil's advocate, see things from a different perspective, just so that you know that you're really reviewing the theme from a critical point of view. What about something quite kind of conceptual, as something like representation? Again, representation can be very literal in the sense of how you accurately represent something. You can take that further into something that is a lot more again, socially specific, culturally specific, politically important. So again, you can look at how specific people have been represented in the media historically, etc. And then again, you have a theme that can be very, very concrete and practical, that also lends itself to a lot of critical exploring and discovering things about the theme itself, right? So I hope that I'm kind of making sense here. You want to kind of ensure that the theme that you choose is appropriate for all the criteria that you are being marked on, right? So everything from actually producing artwork, that's very, very important, because you may like a theme and it doesn't inspire you to make art. Sometimes I get students who, are very good at exploring things, but they end up writing about it, more creating art. Right, so it's getting really, really hot right now, and I'm actually covered in mosquito bites. So this is it from me. I hope this has been helpful. If you've got any questions or any topics that you'd like me to cover, please leave that in the comments below. A lot of you are going back to school, so I wish you all the very best, you and your teachers. I know it's already a challenging year, but we'll make it. Thank you very much for watching. This is Ms. A.